grace. You have brought me to your secret place. Lord, I know I'm accepted, never to be rejected, underneath your canopy of grace. Underneath your canopy of grace.
A canopy, a tent-like structure or forest covering, but Mom's canopy was of God's grace.
The verse when I was confirmed, and our verse was, be confident of this, that the one who has begun a good work in you will perfect it until the day of Jesus Christ. And that statement has stayed with me. But I said to my confirmation pastor, how can I make a promise that I will keep all my life? And he says, when you make a real commitment to Jesus, you live under the canopy of God's grace. And I have felt that canopy in my life, and I'm so thankful that even when I get down, the Lord picks me up and gives me the joy of remembering these verses and other verses that come to my mind. So I pray that this might be your case too, that the verses that have been with you and you learned in memory when you were young will just bless your days, their later days, as you go on.
Swanhild Thompson was born January 31, 1919, in Fort Dauphin, Madagascar. She was the daughter of missionaries Sven and Elise Tverberg. She lived at home until she was 5, and then joined her sisters at the mission school, a long and difficult journey from where her family lived. The children stayed there most of the year, only seeing their parents during their 2-month summer vacation and other brief holidays. It was a real sacrifice, and the missionaries and their children saw this as a part of God's mission for them. But they knew they were always covered by the canopy of God's grace. Eventually, there would be 6 children in the Tverberg family, 4 girls and 2 boys. One by one, they would stay in the United States while the rest of the family headed back to Madagascar for another 6-year term. Swanee stayed behind for her senior year in high school in Cyrus, Minnesota, and then headed off to St. Olaf. Her first roommate, Lori Ritland, later became her sister-in-law because Swanee introduced Lori to her brother Miltzo. Swanee met Connie at St. Olaf College, and they were married on June 4th, 1940. They lived first in Pomeroy, Iowa, where Merv was born, but then decided to go to St. Paul, and Dad enrolled at Luther Seminary. Bev was born in 1944, Mark in 1945, and Nathan in 1951 in Watertown, South Dakota. The family returned to the Twin Cities in 1952. Dad traveled much of the time, and so Swanee was left at home with the 4 children. She entered into sainthood early during these years, and Conrad said many times that he could not have done his ministry unless Swanee was doing her ministry, taking care of the children and the home. Every night we had devotions, and Mom prayed for Dad and everyone else that we knew. We loved our childhood and experienced the canopy of God's grace, the love of our parents and each other, and we had many fun times. We had a sense of humor in our home inspired by our mother and father, and we brothers often had fun at our dear sister's expense. Dad and Mom were great storytellers, and this was one of their favorites.
That I would do something entirely different than before. I'd tell you a story. It's my wife's story, and she really should tell it. But there was a man walking along one day and saw a sign on a house that said, "Help wanted." So he went up to the house and asked, "What kind of help do you need?" Well, the person said, "I have a porch in the back that needs painting, and I'd like to have you do that." Oh, he said, "I think I could handle it." So he got a gallon of paint and a brush, and the man went to work. And after a while, he came back, and he met the owner, and the owner said, "Well, are you through already?" "Oh, yes," he said. "In fact, I gave it 2 coats and have some paint left over. And by the way," he said, "that's not a Porsche back there, that's a Ferrari."
Alas, we all grew up, went to college, found marriage partners, and within a few years, Swanee and Connie had 10 grandchildren. And then, in almost a blink of the eye, 19 great-grandchildren were born. In their retirement years, Mom and Dad traveled and spent time with their brothers and sisters. Dad made trunks for every grandchild. And for Mom, too. And Mom sewed in the Norwegian Hardanger tradition and taught many women how to sew Hardanger. Dad died in July of 2001. Mom lived in 2 worlds, and as time went by, she wanted so much to die and be with Dad and her father and mother and sisters and brothers once again. She lived under the canopy of God's grace, and so wanted all of us to live under that canopy as well. Every morning she prayed for each one of us by name, and prayed that we have that relationship with Christ.
God be with you till we meet again. By His counsels guide uphold you. With His sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again.